Well, hello, welcome to me making some stuff for a change. It's been quite a long time, hope you're well. I thought it would be a good idea to actually create some videos where I'm making a puppet from scratch. And this will be for my advert to advertise some of the books that I've been writing that are ongoing. And I thought it would be a good idea for you to see them, and if you're subscribed to my Patreon, actually get hold of them and have a look at them at the end. Now, what I've got here is a simple rough drawing that I've done. If you look at the node view, it's just a rough image of one of the characters that's going to be in this advert. And for the most part, the characters in this are kind of like 1950s, 60s characters. So they're very black and white. But there are going to be pops of colour from the creations that they do that are fanciful. So I've done this, I've created this advert in an animatic form, and I've written a song for it and all this sort of stuff, and now I've got to actually animate the thing and create the characters and animate the thing. So I've got a rough image here of the character completely front on, and I've basically drawn this thing, and then I'm going to create the puppet using bits and pieces. Now, because this is just a short animated advert, I'm not going to make this character perhaps as thoroughly as something that was going to have repeated use for lots and lots of other productions. It's a complete waste of time to do that. So don't expect this character to be A, the most refined, and B, the most versatile. The things that this character had to do are very minimal. So I might not even put any kind of master controller on her face, because literally what is the point? The movement of this character is going to be quite crude, to reflect the 1950s from which she comes. Not all of the stuff in this commercial is going to be animated or look the same way. It's just the majority of it is 50s, 60s, largely for efficiency reasons. I want to make it quickly, and that's a good way of doing it. Fun fact, during the 50s, Hanna-Barbera in particular were instrumental in creating styles of animation that were efficient. They had a lot to create over a very small amount of time, small budgets. And they also had to create characters, if you look at stuff from that period, that were having to be quite clear on a very small screen. If you think of Hanna-Barbera back in the 1930s or whatever, when they were doing Tom and Jerry, they had full, rich, beautiful colours, very, very definite, tiny little bits of detail, because, of course, it was going to be blown up to a massive size. Now, when you're working for the television screen, you have to and it's a very fuzzy black and white screen. You've got to think of high contrast, almost hieroglyphic levels of clarity, because you're dealing with that. So that is the reason why characters looked the way they did at that time. Very, very simple, and you could just churn them out. And for some of the characters in this is what I'm going for. Now, I've done my rough image, and it's a simple, ignore this thing. I've got an image node going into a composite here, and it's been displayed. I'm just going to lock this so I don't accidentally touch it. What I will do for this rough pencil, this is the colour that I drew it with. I'm just going to calm the alpha down so it's a little bit more like that. That's great. And this character is called First Woman. That's literally what she's called. And I've only got two colours for her at the moment, but she probably would benefit from one mid colour as well. So I'm going to come in and call it mid. And then I'm just going to do that. And that's our three colours for this one character. There we go, like that. I'm just going to save it as well. So, now just to bear with me, if halfway through this my Wacom pen goes AWire and I have to sort of reconnect it in some way, you'll have to just accept this, because I've only recently upgraded to Mac OS, whatever it's called, Sonoma, and Wacom have now said that This particular Cintiq that I've had for quite a while that still works perfectly well is now no longer supported by them. So as a consequence, sometimes it goes a bit weird and I have to reconnect it. So thank you, Wacom, for that. Very kind. Just a little inroad. I will not be buying any more Wacom stuff from this point because that is the greatest insult to me for buying their stuff. It's a very expensive piece of equipment that I thought was going to last longer than 10 years, and it's not even lasted that. So I am a bit cross with Wacom, quite honestly. So I'm just going to go with something a lot cheaper, and luckily these days there's a lot more competition than there was 10 years ago. Anyway, so eat that, Wacom. Right, now I'm going to add a new drawing layer, and the way I like to construct a puppet is by just sort of scanning the image and just with my eye and thinking of how it's all going together. So I tend to always start with the head. So I am going to create the head first. But what I'm going to do before I draw anything is just sort of figure out what's going to merge into each other's stuff and what's going to be separated and all this. So I'm going to create the head and the neck separately, I think, because I do like to have a little bit of separation between that, and then I might do something interesting with a constraint there, because that's so much easier to move things around. The hairs are all going to be separate. The band I will do as a cutout inside the head, because then that gives me the opportunity to sort of move that around and give the impression that she's looking from left to right. You'll see what I'm doing later on. The bow will probably be 3 separate things. The neck will be a separate thing. The body will be kind of a shape with a shape on top of it and a bit of cutting, I think. A dress and the usual stuff there, perhaps with some what they're called, deformers on the legs and arms. Yeah, that sort of stuff is fairly straightforward. It's nothing complicated, but there are probably a couple of little things that I'm going to do that you may not have thought of, because I am starting to get into do advanced things for newbies, but actually now I'm so used to doing them, I sort of put them in anyway. So let's get started. I'm going to do the head. I'm just going to do a circle for the head to start with. Let me zoom right in there. Now, what I like to do is start with the geometric shapes usually first. I don't tend to do, what I don't do, I'll show you what I don't do, is get hold of the pen tool and then go, because A, it leads into a very ugly shape that I'll have to tidy up anyway, and B, if we look here, it's got point, point, point. I don't like drawing in this ugly, weirdy way and then having to get in and tidy up. So it's just a waste of time, and then I have to go through the rather laborious process of joining it together to be able to fill it. It's a waste of my time. So I'd much rather do either a circle or, actually, let's do a square. And the reason I might do a square is because I know that's only got 4 points. And then I can go in and start sort of morphing it into the sort of direction I want. And then I can go in, I'm holding down Option here, Alt probably on a PC keyboard, to soften those angles. And then I've got pretty much what I want. Now I'm not going to be too clean about the angles here and stuff. One of the joys about this style of character design is that the characters were a little bit wobbly. If you look at designs from that time, they weren't always very good for the models. They weren't on model, they did all sorts of funny little things, and I want to try and keep that for these characters. As I've said before, other characters in this are not going to be of that and are going to demonstrate that I can draw. But I'm going to have fun with this and actually have characters that look a little bit not quite right. One of the things as well I am going to do is boiling of line. And if we take a look at this and have a look at this, you may not know about this, but in the colour menu, you get colours, which makes total sense. This should be changed, this colour, to palettes, I think. And because the reason why is it's not always about colour in here, it's about colour and texture. Colour is what we're seeing now, but then if I go over to this menu, we're now seeing textures, all of which I've made. I've made them in another piece of software called Affinity Designer, and these are the textures that I've made. If you want to know how to do this, you can refer to my book, Toon Boom Kaboom Line, and it will tell you how to do textured line work. And they have different profiles. Each panel is quite small, and they end and they begin in exactly the same way, so that it can be a repeating pattern. But they have different thickness and thinnesses all the way through them at different rates to do different kinds of boil. And for this, I'm going to use what I've created, agitated mild. And you notice if I click on different things, you get different sort of line thicknesses happening automatically. I'm going to go with agitated mild. And you'll notice there's a tiny bit of change. You can see a bit there, actually, quite a lot of lump there, which I'll get to a bit later. But generally speaking, you can see that it's not very different from one place to another, and that I want. For a lot of this character, there's not an awful lot of thick and thin that's deliberate. It's pretty much just because the penmanship is bad, and that's what I want. There's a little bit of actual thick and thin there with her hair that's deliberate, but most of the time, and you can see with her eyebrows that's happening, and with her features, they're quite small anyway, and there's a bit of thin at the top and thick at the bottom for her lips, but most of the time it's pretty crude, and in fact most of her outline is an incredibly thick line. So that's what I'm trying to get. I don't have to worry about the subtleties of it and just can concentrate on the boil. So I've got the head there, I'm happy with that. We can always go in a bit later and fiddle around with that. The reason I'm not going to do it now is because this is going to be an animated boil, and so A, this might not be an issue much, and B, if I do want it to be fixed, I can alter that in a slightly different way, which I'll get into later. Anyway, right, so I've got that neck. Okay, so I'm going to create a neck. In fact, while I do this, I would like to have just create a stopwatch here so I know how long I've been recording. There we go, so I've got that going. Great. Right, okay. So let me just alter that. Now, if I want to change the thickness and thinness generally of the line, I can go in there and do it. But in terms of, there we go. In terms of what line is being used, I'm just going to try and find, these are all the general presets. Can I go here and do it? Just bear with me. New brush preset. Well, it's not that important. What I'll do is I'll add that later. I think that, I can't remember exactly. I think I have to go, yeah. Oh, hang on, here we go. Here we go, that's it. So I just say that, please, yes. And then I say, I want to create a new pencil based around this texture. There we go. So I'll call this pencil boil agitated mild. And then that way, this will use that texture every single time that way, and I don't have to keep selecting it all the time. So if I go there and say, yeah, I'm already on it. There we go. It's a little bit confusing even for me, but I kind of know my way enough that I can sort of always get back to where I need to be. But yeah, palettes in Toon Boom are they're confusing, and it doesn't matter how long you've used this software, it will tend to sort of confuse you a little bit, and that's the reason why when you're exporting models, sometimes you will get a load of palettes and colours and things that you hadn't intended for that character to have. I've done it, lots of other people have done it. It's just one of those helpful yet not helpful things about the way the software works, but it's not the worst thing ever. So I'm going to create another one. So this will be a hair. I'll start with the hair, and I'll do the hair A-U. So A-U will be A upper, B-U will be B upper, A-D will be A down, and you get the idea. This will be, it's the same one, good. Right, so I'll just do that. Now with this particular hairstyle, hairstyle. It's interesting what's going on there. Let's just hang on. I want to see. I've always got to put a color card down so that I can see what it's like when it's rendered. Okay, so when it's rendered, you don't see anything ugly. It's just the preview. Obviously, you see a bit of sort of chunking there, and just for my own interest, it's not going to be relevant to this particular production at all, because the character is going to be very, very, very far out of sight. But I am going to just create a camera here and zoom in just so that I can see what's going on with this line work. Whoops, I'll just go up here. There we go. There we go. I just want to see what's happening here and whether it renders or not. Okay, it does. Okay. Let me just see if I can fix that, because it might come up with a close-up or something like that. Not of this character necessarily, but start, end. Here we are. Right, so here, okay. Okay. Does it work with any of the other lines I've created? Let me just try that. So, oh, hang on. Again, I've got to go here. So it is changing, I can see, and the cap is always... Strange, isn't it? I wonder why Wobble 1 doesn't have any problem at all, but Wobble 2 does. And then all the subsequent ones. Let me just have a little look at the original artwork here. So if I zoom right in, now you'll see that that is exactly the same as that. There's no problem. Now, is there a problem on the other end? Is there a teeny tiny little bit left? I don't think there is. So this is something to do with the software doing odd things. Okay, I wonder if I can fix it at all. Very odd, that. I've never seen this before. This is a this is a first. Oh dear. Okay. Thanks for a rousing start to the year. Hang on. So I get it there, but I don't get it. Sorry, I don't get it there, but I do get it there. Let me draw something quickly just to see. Right, you can see quite a prominent one on one end, but not on the other end. Why is it joining it together, please? We don't want that. I mean, it literally starts, doesn't it? That is very odd. I've never seen this before. Okay. Tip style round, tip style flat. Well, if you want to go in there and sort of fiddle around, you can. You see, like that. But that is very strange. And I can understand this. That's better. And then you can sort of go in there and unusual. But that. If you look, whoops, if you look at what's this? Use as default, reload. Good reload. Oh, okay, that's the default set of palettes. Chalk, blah blah blah. None of these have that problem at all. There we are. So we're back to my ones. Okay. I'm having to now figure out something, which I don't like to do, especially in a tutorial. But well, it's not a tutorial. It's a sort of come and look, have a look at me. This happens to everybody. It's not just me. I have to keep telling myself that. Okay. Alright, let me try. If I go here, this is the original one. I'll go in here. Smoothness, proportional camera, center lines, contour, join, blah, blah, blah. This is odd. Okay, so come and fix this with me. Let's have a look. Okay. Why is that? I'm just going to pull that artwork out a little bit. I'm going to pull it out a little bit there as well. Just to absolutely know that that line is not there. In fact, actually, I would like it on the one that I would like to use for this, which is this one. So I'm just going to move it there. I'm just going to move it there. So I'm pretty certain. And then in this software, I go to the export persona, and I'm going to call it that. And then here, I'm going to get rid of that one. So all the textures that use that are now destroyed. And oh no, because hang on. Again, I think it's a glitch. I don't think it's. Yeah, so you do render it. Okay. Let me add a texture. I'm going to add agitated mild. So that's the one I've just created. It's still doing it. Okay. Now I've got to look at the settings of this because I don't know why that's happening. Let me export that in a slightly different way. So I'm going to export just area that's agitated mild, and we're just going to check that everything is tickety-boo. I mean, it could be some setting that I've got in Affinity Designer that's not quite right. So I'm going to try, has to be a PNG because you have to export the alpha channel. And I'm going to try, let's try nearest neighbor, export, and let's call it that again. Yeah, that's fine. And then I'm going to get rid of that, and it'll say, do you want to? And you say yes. And then you add it again. Ah, there we go. So it must have been something to do with the exporting of the PNG here. So nearest neighbor, what seems to have happened is when it exported a Vectorwork image into a PNG, the very edges of the image, it seems to have just sort of faded off a little bit, at least at one end. And I didn't want that. I wanted it to be completely solid all the way along. This incredible, oh, I can zoom in good. So you see at the very edge, you don't want a gap. There shouldn't be a gap at all. If you look at the actual artwork, there should be absolutely no gap. And that's very much dependent on how it interprets the information. You see, there's absolutely no gap there. So I must have on the export persona the wrong kind of PNG. So I've got it on bilinear. I should change it to nearest neighbor, and then I know that all of these will be fine. So I'll just save that. That's good to know, actually. That is not something I had previously thought was an issue, but there we are. So now we've got our nice big fat image, and my suspicion about that one was that maybe when I exported that one, I did it manually and I just had the right setting on. Anyway, never mind. Whereas the other ones were all sort of like done on a kind of macro basis. Anyway, never mind. We're done. We're here. We've averted disaster. So what I'll do is I'll just turn off the camera by disabling it, and then we can get on with our puppet. Right, let me just go here. Neck. There we go. That's looking better. All these funny little artifacts and everything are gone. Again, we've got that one because what's happening is that's the start of the artwork, or that's the start, and it's gone all the way around and then just sort of finished halfway through its sort of artwork loop. Now, one way, if you were not doing a boil and you wanted it to sort of be completely perfect, is you can use this tool called the Edit Gradient and Texture tool, which is not a default thing. You have to find it in if you customize the toolbar. And then you can go in there and you can see the textures map on this line. You can see the beginning of it. I don't know whether the beginning of it's there or the end of it's there, but that green triangle is where it starts. And of course, if it comes down here, I think, is it where it starts? Yeah. Yes, it's where it starts. So it starts there and then keeps going and going. And what we want is for that part to be quite close to the other bit. Let me just try and get it again. Goodness. Just a minute. Now what's happening? Okay. Sometimes I don't know whether it's a Wacom thing or whether it's... Okay, so that's working. So why now is this not doing it? Let's just try it with the head. Right, so, okay, we're getting things. Hair. Okay, that makes sense. Neck. Okay, my suspicion is that the texture has gone a bit odd. Hang on, let me get back to this. So we've got the neck, and we've got to go there, and then I need to go to that one. There we are. There we are. That's very strange. I'll just have to undo a few times until we get back to where we were. Ah, there we are. Right, so we're back to where we were, and I'm going to move this part. How strange. That can change the thickness of the texture over the thickness of the line. So if you look here, that has made the texture of the line fit within the boundaries of the thickness of the line, if that makes sense. Because it thinks the middle of the line is over here, texture-wise, that's the reason why I'm having to keep dragging this, because if you can see, that's the thickness. I'll rewind a few times back to how we had it. Now, I really would like to try and get that line back to where it's supposed to be, but when I try to do that, it seems to sort of snap off and go somewhere else. Ah, here we go. Right. Yeah, weird. So I do make sense. Okay. I think sometimes when you're dealing with a very small line and initially it gets a bit confused, so you have to just undo and try again until eventually... Ah, so you see here... Right, that's fine, but then as soon as it sort of gets round, it goes, ooh, doesn't like that. So I sort of humoured it. There we go. If we try and get it close to it, and then if we render that, there we go. Ignore this funny little artifact here, that means nothing. If I change where that starts, you get... This is the length of line we want. We want the join to happen there. Or do we? You'll notice that the line changes are very pronounced now, whereas they weren't before. So you can remedy this by either having a subtler line boil, and that would work, or you can, potentially put something else on top of it and work alongside. It's entirely up to you. I'm not sure exactly which direction I'm going to go with this, but for now, I'm just going to leave it as it originally was. Hang on. There we go. So that's how it originally was, the texture of the line. And we're going to fix anything like that a little bit later on. I just want to get on and make the blinking puppet. Right, okay. So we're back to the hair. And I've done that. Now, I don't like the edge, because what we're going to do with this hair strand is just going to duplicate it several times. And I don't like the edge of it. So I'm just going to get hold of that cap, holding down Shift using the pencil editor tool. And then I've got a rounder end to it. All this, if you notice, is just essentially masking off the texture of the line. And I'd like that texture to happen more along that way, so that it's a bit more even, doesn't sort of happen suddenly like that. So I'm just going to bring that in. Okay, so it's actually affecting the texture, isn't it? Damn it. All right, let's try. Oh, I know a way around this. Right, hang on. Instead of that, I'm just going to have to. Whoops. I'm just going to have to pull the texture and then do a bit of that until eventually. That's not working very well either, is it? It's because of where the texture is falling on that bit of the line work. Okay. I mean, it works. The texture will boil within that. There's no way I can get the texture to fill out this area because it will bubble and boil. There will be a part of the line that is exactly that thickness, or very, very close to it anyway. So, oh, hang on there. That might not be true. I might be talking rubbish. In fact, I am talking rubbish. What we'll do is we'll recreate this texture to fill the entirety of this box. So you notice there's a gap here and a gap here. For it to be the complete thickness of the line, we need to have it go as absolutely filled to this area as possible. But we don't want it cut off. I want these undulations to happen and for them not to hit the tops. I want them as close as I can get them to this area here. So I'm just going to increase the width of the widest point. Now, where is the widest point? That's the question. In this software, if I select the line itself, we get a pressure kind of cross section, and you can see that the beginning and the end are at the absolute highest point. So if I go to the beginning, zoom in, then we see we've got a little bit of a gap there, and I'm just gonna increase the width until that's as good as we can get it. There's a tiny sliver, but that'll do. That's fine. So I'm going to save that, and then I'm going to export. Oh, now I can export it on its own because I've sorted out. I've said to this agitated mild and use nearest neighbor. That's fine. I'm just going to export, put it there. Yeah, export. Yeah. That's good. Replace, and then if I get rid of it for the 900th time, hang on, where is it? There we go. So go away and then come back using this, and now we should have, if we go to this, oh no, it's not done it. Come on. Which one are we using here? Tapered stencil. Broken. Oh, broken. That's it. And now we've got that problem again. It must be something to do with that export then. That's interesting, because all of that is exactly correct. Got PNG, use document format, nearest neighbor, which is what I said before, but for some reason when I export it like this, it doesn't work. I haven't got time to look into it. I will just export it in the usual way. I'll just do it like that. Nearest neighbor, la la la. Maybe this is an issue. I'm not sure. It doesn't matter. Anyway, export it. Export it as that word. I'll have to look into it for my own sanity's sake. There we go. Get rid of that for the millionth time. Pop that in there. There we go. It must be something to do with that export process. And I don't know whether it's a glitch on Affinity's end or what's going on, but I don't want that. Anyway, I'm going to just save that. Now because I've pulled that texture to its limit, I now should be able to go to here. And obviously we're going to have the same issue because at this point the texture is thin, but at least at the very top it is thick. Now, because the line work isn't going to be seen there, it's tempting to boil it back to front, but that won't fix anything because the boil will just roll down the line So you'll get the thickest point eventually coming. So it's not really going to do anything particularly helpful. So, you know, I can do that till the cows come home. It is not going to make a difference. I wonder if I can cinch it in. I can sort of increase the point, which I might do just to sort of help it along. There we go, like that. I don't know. It's sort of a lost cause, really. Oops, there we go. That's just, I mean, that's nice and smooth. So that's what I'm after, and that's good. There we are. So yeah, that one. Now what I'm going to do is duplicate, and you'll notice I don't copy. I always duplicate. Duplicate this. I'm going to use a hotkey for this, which will duplicate this, if I can remember what the flipping hotkey is on here. It's been a while. Just a moment. Is it that? Hang on, I'll find out if it was or not. I'm fairly certain it was. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a key, and then I'm going to duplicate. And if I the key, hang on, wait a minute. Yeah, and no. Damn it. Sorry, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to test it. Yeah, hang on. Well, I'm undoing several times until that goes grey. Till that. Is the button not working? Oh, is that save? No, it is undo. So it is undoing. There we go. Undo. Okay, great. Yeah. So now we're with this. So you'll understand what I mean in a minute. I'm just going to create a peg just to test this because I cannot remember which button it is. There. So where is the? If I just connect it up so I can see it on here and create a key. If I duplicate this, the key won't exist on the new one. So I potentially have duplicated it when I transfer it over. Okay, so that is a copy. Or is it? Hang on. Oh, no. The key will exist, but... Hang on. If I change one, then the other will change. If it's a clone. Right, okay, so they are just duplicated, thank goodness. Okay. Good. Right. So I duplicate the hair that way. And if you want to know where duplicate is in the menu, it is there. I've created my own hotkey for that, but you might want to do your own. Right. So I'm going to call this a D for hair down. And when I plug it in, I'm just going to move the artwork of the hair D down like that. I'm going to shrink it down. That's probably all right. And then just shrink the size of the hair down a little bit. That's excellent. And then, excuse me, I'm going to duplicate these two and call them B and B. Plug them in, and I'm gonna flip them round using that. Oops. Okay, I didn't realise that was part of it, so that's a good job I caught that. Oh, hang on. It was that one, yeah. Go away. And of course that one also has it, doesn't it? And therefore that one also has it. So now they only are the strands. That was just me mucking about that funny little blob. Good. Okay, so BU, just shift you over here. I'm just moving the artwork to roughly where I think it should go. Now, because she is not symmetrical, I'm actually going to keep it more in with the drawing that I did. And just do a bit of that, and do a bit of that. And then the same thing for the BD. So again, oops. Using the actual drawing. Do I have all the stuff? Here we are. Flip it round. And then move it to about there. There we go. Right. Okay. So now we've got our hair. I'm just going to create another one that is going to be for her eyes. So I'll do one eye. There's no point in doing two eyes for this sort of stuff because I will just duplicate it over. It's a bit different to the hair because they are sort of different. These really are the same thing. So I always do like one half and then I just duplicate the artwork or clone the artwork depending on what I want them to do. So I'm going to call this AI. AI, very prescient. And I'm going to create, I am going to do a square again for her AI. And that is, I just want to check that is using the right texture. It looks as if it is, but I just want to check. Oh, agitated mild is what I want, not medium. There we are. So am I actually, when I'm drawing stuff, it's not on the right one here. So I just want to check that that's in place. Let me just go here, texture, agitated mild. And I'm going to click this button, which refreshes it sort of now. So, oh, you want that instead. You want these settings to now be pencil, ball, agitated mild. Yes, I do. So now if I draw with that, I'm using this texture by default. It's very fiddly. There's lots of different panels. It's one of those things that you sort of just understand through many, many uses of it. It's not something easily explained because it seems to, because it's very context sensitive kind of thing. Now I've got thinner line work for this. There we go. And oh, hang on. Right, I'll just check that with the rendering. Yeah, that's fine. Right, and now I want to go here. Oops. And I want. Now, part of the reason why I like to draw in this way as well, when does her eye finish there, isn't it? It's if I want to change the shape of the eye for an expression or something, and I want to do that on a drawing base level, it's much easier to grab hold of that and make her alarmed, or get hold of those three, sort of that, and make her smile and stuff, than it is if there are lots of different points all in funny places. It does make manipulating her without deformers a lot easier, you know. So I'm just gonna calm that down a bit more. How thin are her eyes on that? Yeah, they are pretty. Oops, they are pretty. Come on, I'm having to do that with my trackpad. They are pretty thin. Right, so that's one eye. Now let's do a pupil. Oops. A pupil. And this is very easy. Oops. He says. Let me just shrink that down. What I might do, actually, is create another preset and call it pencil boil agitated mild small. There we go. And I don't like this. I'm going to change how this appears, because stroke view, that's better. It's easier to understand what's going on here. And the words are easier to read. So, whoops. Okay, clearly that's too big. So I'm just going to shrink it down a bit more. And here I'm going to refresh it. So now small will mean that it's still too big. So I'm going to shrink it down even more. Still too big. A bit too small now. 3. I think 3 is about right. So save that, and now we've got something that can repeatedly make. Yeah, there we go. Right, so circle, fill, and then for this I'm actually going to get rid of the outlying artwork because I don't want that boiling. I just want her eye as a thing like that. There we go. So that is her eye, pupil rather, and then I've got to do a lid. So, I keep doing that. A lid. Now the lid I'm going to make a rectangle like that, and I'm just gonna I'm gonna position these bits like that. So if you wanted to, you could make her blink without actually manipulating it at all. You could just slide the rectangle down and it would cover the eye completely. I'm going to do that a bit because she needs that expression, and that should be enough. And then if we want to manipulate it, we can put a deformer on it and blah-de-blah-de-blah. But yeah, generally speaking, that would work quite well. Now, what else do we want? We need a eyebrow. And I'm going to just use this. Oh. And that is not what I want. Why does it keep doing that? Is that... hang on. Ugh. Yeah, that's right. Okay, and then I'll just make some changes here. So, there and there and there. There we go, that's tapered, and then I shall go in and manipulate. So, where's the end? It's about there, isn't it? So I'm going to do that, and a bit of that. There we go. I might thicken it up a little bit, because it is a bit thin weedy. Calm it down a bit in the middle. Well, there you go. Change the position of that. I think that's all right. We can always go in and make some alterations later if the expression's not quite right. Now her mouth is going to be very, very simple. There's not really going to be any rigging in her mouth at all. It's going to be drawn expressions. So what I will do is just create a mouth. Or I don't even call it a mouth, I just call it a mouth. And I'm going to create it out of... whoopsie daisy. There we are. I'm going to create it out of 2 rectangles, I think. Now I'm just wondering if I should subvert them to 2 sub-art layers, and that way I can manipulate the top lip and the bottom lip without them sort of interacting. I think I might do that. So I've got, so they're they're still part of the same layer, but they're on different sub layers, and that way I can go in and fiddle around with either both of them at the same time or just one, and still, you know, have my cake and eat it. Basically, I can make subtleties, but this is, I think, over the top. Nevertheless, it'll just give me an extra degree of flexibility, which might help me in future expressions just get them made a little bit quicker. So if I get rid of that, pull that there, and curve it out a bit so it's not quite so sharp on that, and then I think that's good. Now there's a bit of, actually I might alter that a little bit. There's a little bit of overlap, so the top lip will overhang the bottom one, and then we'll get the right look. And I want the bottom part to be a bit fatter in the middle, so I'm just going to create that. There we go. I think a little bit fatter still. There we are. Lovely. Right. Okay, now we're going to do her sort of bandana thing. What do they call it? It's ridiculous. I know this now. A turban. That's it. Turban. Something which the housewife of yesteryear used to have a lot all the time. My mum and my grandmother used to wear turbans quite a lot in the 60s, 70s. But they seem to have fallen out of fashion, which is a shame, because I thought they always looked quite nice. Anyway, right. There we go. Now what I'm going to do, again, is keep... I don't like sharp lines, even when you're not going to see them, just in case they pop through, because they're very visible if they pop through. So I like to have blobby-like forms. I mean, I've done it there, which I shouldn't do. Move it up. Just to maintain a curve. I like to maintain a curve. There. Because they tend to be more sympathetic for animation movements when you're getting very close to an edge or something. I mean, in fact, if she's turning her head, you want that to happen, in which case you want this sort of shape, and then you probably want it the other side. So it's starting to look more like an Apple Vision Pro, isn't it? There we go. Oops, what's gone on there? That was odd. That was very odd. Okay, don't know what happened there. Anyway, glitch. Anyway, that will be fine. I think I need to thicken the line a little bit. Now, in fact, what does it look like? Yes, it is definitely a bit thicker than the rest, so that'll be okay. And I think I'll do the same thing for her eyelid. There we are. I don't like sharp lines. I like things flowing better than that. Because if, as I said before, if you've got an animator that accidentally, I mean me, moving stuff where it shouldn't be, this won't be nearly as obvious a curve, whereas a sharp line, you'll notice it immediately. I mean, if you really want to notice these things, then put the sharp lines in, because then you really will notice. Well, having said that, I've seen productions where that has happened. Big ones. I think I saw some funny errors in The Lion Guard, where the edge of somebody's eye did this thing. It wasn't quite matching up with the rest of the line. I mean, you know, we're only human creating these things. So you put things in to make life easy for yourself. Now I'm going to do A, B, and C bow. A, B, C. C for centre. So A, bow. And the B bow will be exactly the same initially, and then just altered a little bit. So like that. Went rather well. Okay. There we go, lovely. And then I'm just going to increase the thickness. Ooh, it's on the colour art layer. I don't want that. Cut, paste. Did I do some of these things on the colour art layer? I think I may have done. Turban. Turban is on the line art layer. Good. Okay. The lid is on the line art layer. Oh, no, it isn't. I've got that turned on. Lid is fine. Turban, not fine. Okay, so colour, cut, paste, and the bow might be wrong as well. Yeah, cut, paste. There we are. Sometimes, right. Okay. How thick is that? Quite thick. Okay. That'll do it. Okay. I'm going to duplicate that. There we go, at least it's more attached now. And I'm going to flip it around and move the artwork there. And I'm going to make it slightly bigger, alter the shape of it a little bit so they are different, and I'm going to rotate it there. There we go. I don't want it to be a mirror image. Call it B bow. Oops, what on earth's happened there? There we go. And then for the C bow, in fact, actually for the A bow and B bow, I might just do a bit of that. I need to get back into having those as shortcuts, but you need to see what tools I'm manipulating. So this is the problem. I could be much more efficient than this if I, first of all, I wasn't talking. Secondly, if I had a lot more shortcut use that you don't see, but then of course you need to see what I'm doing. So it's, you know, tricky. paste that, flip it, move it over. There we go. And then finally, I need to do C bow. And I'm going to just do a square, and that will be that. You won't see it until I do that, and then I've got to manipulate it. Holding down Shift in the middle allows you to do things like that. Holding down Alt or Option allows you to do that. It's a bit busy work, really. And then thicken that line about there, maybe a bit more. And that should be enough. We'll see when we get to the colouring stage. Now we need to do a collar. So collar, and that is that. So something quite abstracted on purpose. And then we need her main body. So what should I call this? Torso. That'll do. Torso. And this will be a rectangle to start with. And then I'll manipulate it into more of a trapezoid with bulging tendencies. Now what I like to do for things like this is to get that joint as rounded as possible, because then if she leans, it's like a big joint and you've kept that line going on both sides. If it just been like that, it means if she bent over to do something, you've got a great big gap before you get to the dress. So by doing it this way, you've got an extra little bit of rigging room in your... The same thing here. I need to make that less pronounced, but not too much, because otherwise it'll overlap the collar. But just so that you've got an extra element of flexibility when you're moving your character around. That, how thick is that? That's very thick. So yeah, need to go up like that. Okay, it's very agitated, this line. I might have to do something about it. I'm not sure yet what to do. Maybe redesign some or something, I don't know. Anyway. Never mind, we'll come to that later. Now for this thing, I have a choice for her sort of apron of whether to do this, whether to do this shape, or, which is probably more helpful, just do this shape. And that way, if I move this shape around, we get, you know, essentially the idea of an apron, because you're not going to see this bit at all. It's not going to be visible. Her arm is going to be there, and it just there's too many other fiddling details on a character like this to give the impression when turning of an apron. So just with this one square that I can manipulate, I can give the impression that she's turning left and right. So I'm just going to pop that in, and this is an actual sharp line, isn't it, as far as I remember? Yeah. So I'll just do a bit of that. That should be perfectly fine, and then I just thicken it like that. Again, there's too many wobbles going on here. Let me just check something so that I can store it in my mind. So this ends way too quickly, this texture, and I need to have it happen at least up there, maybe even further round, you know, as much as I can get. So there we go, that's thinner. But I think, you know, it's, if I can see, ugh, God, that's really, really tiny. You can sort of pull it. If I pull her, yeah. It's, I might have to do something with the texture for smaller lines. So I'll create a different texture. Similar idea, but a different texture for smaller elements so that we don't have too much of this wobble. I don't like too much of this changing of shape happening in a small area. It's good for big areas, but not for small ones. So I'll come to that later, but it worked very well for here. You know, you've got that joining together and it works fine. So, whoops, I'm accidentally touching the colour card and I don't want that. It's very annoying. Right. next we'll do, we'll do her dress. So her dress is there. Actually, hang on, before I start that, what did I draw this on? Torso. Don't want that to happen. I want it on a separate thing. So I'm going to cut that, create a new layer, and call it apron gap. Alright, that'll do. Close, and then paste it in. And there we are. That's it. So now apron gap has its own little entity. And now we'll do a dress. So dress. So this is the bigger shape, of course. And I'm going to go like that. Just going to manipulate that. And tiddle along like that. Now I want there to be a bit of a curve, but not much. So to preserve that, to make it easy, I'm going to put a bottom bit in there, and that way it's just a little bit easier. But I don't want a sharp corner. I do want a little bit of curvature there. Not much, but a little bit. And then I want loads here. So there we are. I'll actually pull that down a bit. Now all of this you won't see. Oh, hang on. You will see it. You will see at least one of them. Let me get here. Right, so the top part goes over the dress. So the dress has to go all the way up, and I'll have to alter the torso so it's more in line with that, actually. I did a boo-boo. Right, okay, so make that thicker. Now you'll see the line is very, very wibbly-wobbly, so I'm going to have to go in here and just calm that down. That's better. So you see the repeating pattern happens over a larger area. That's what's going on here. This is a lot easier to understand than how it was earlier. Right, okay, just save that. And now I'm going to do, oh hang on, just finish her torso. And I'm just going to calm that, whoops, I'm going to calm that down. There we go. So where I was saying before, when she tilts, it's now not going to be this that's exposed, it's going to be the dress underneath it. So when she bends like that, you're going to see the round of her dress like that. And we can always do some clever things with the deformations to get that part sort of joining up and stuff. So, but we want that sort of line more preserved in the top and not in the dress part. So now I've got the dress, and I'm going to create the rest of the apron. So apron, because we only created the apron gap, which was up there, and this is the apron. And if I'm very clever, I might be able to create a relationship between this part and this part that helps me turn her around. I mean, it's a very nice academic thing, and I like doing things like that, but it's, you know, if I was really up against it, and I am kind of, it's a bit of an overindulgence, but, you know, I've got an audience, so it's kind of interesting to do these little things to see where they take you. And they do save time, but only it's more for characters that are more fiddly to work with, and she won't be. She's going to be very, very straightforward. Right. Let me just do that. That's lovely. Okay, so we've got the basics done. Her dress apron thing is going to be cut out and going to be fiddled around with. I'm just thinking, is there a way of doing it so that it's sort of like that? But even if there was, the two things are not going to be moving in total tandem. So though a relationship can be formed, meh. Anyway, that's my professional opinion. Meh. Right, I'm going to create a arm for her, literally called a arm. And because of her design, and she has got very curvy arms, there's no benefit to me to create any kind of constraint-based arm. She's going to literally have a very, very, very basic... Sorry. She's going to have a very, very basic arm structure. Is there any thickness? barely noticeable there tapering of the arm. Again, I'm really annoyed about that, so I'm just going to change that texture so that it's more generously distributed. And then I'm going to just take that arm and move, whoopsie daisy, I'm going to just move that over to roughly where I think it should go. Now, as far as I remember, the arms sort of connect to underneath her collar, so you don't see the end result of them. However, so technically you should be hiding them, tucking them underneath the thing. However, I would like, again, to just have a curve, have a curve at the end, so that way if there is any untucking, it's not noticed. There you go. And then her arm connecting with her hand is just one element. So again, I'm going to curve the bottom like that, so it creates one entity, and then I'll create a hand that joins together, so you won't notice that the two things are not joined together. There we go, like that. Now I'll do the hands and feet at the end. A leg. Create my leg. And I'm going to do that, I'm going to do that, and I'm going to do that, and I'm going to do that. There we go. Right, do that and make it bigger, then I'm sure I've got the same problem with that texture. How much play have I got? Fair amount. Yeah, it's not bad, I suppose. I still think for the smaller elements I'll need to have a different texture so it doesn't boil like mad, but we'll only see that when I do some tests later. Now, her legs are quite dainty, so actually that's quite thick. So I'm going to calm it down for a start, and then calm it down even more to get that sort of Disney princess thing going. I'm just going to calm that so it becomes more of a sort of delicate point there. And then I'm going to, right, her feet, hang on, I do need that to be a bit more pronounced. You know, she is a very, very stylized 1950s idea of the perfect lady. You know, except a bedraggled version. I mean, what are her feet? They're literally just leaves. There we are, like that. I've done it again. I'm drawing it on something that isn't there. So cut a foot and paste. There we go. You know, it's not irredeemable. You don't have to get rid of it. You just cut it and paste it into the thing it's supposed to be. How thick are her feet? If anything, they're slightly thicker than her legs, so it's about there. That'll do. And maybe a tapering at the end of her toe. There we are, like that. I think that's, that's pretty good. Oops. Right, so now I'll just do a little bit of stuff for her hand. So, a hand. Close. Right, now the hand is just kind of a placeholder at this moment. Some people like to do lots and lots of different positions. I'm of the opinion, on the whole, that you don't know what positions you're going to want the hand in, really. It's you will know when you come to them. So do maybe 1, 2 or 3 to get you from place to place, and then you can fiddle around. What are her hands? Whoa, excuse me. Right, what are her hands? Pretty basic stuff. So I'm gonna go like that. There we are. I mean, one thing you could do is have like one hand that is the sort of basic abstract from which you make all the other hands. That's another approach. You know, a sort of fresh virgin one that you can then purloin and use for all sorts of other things. And in fact, I might just do that. If I do that, it's like the basic hand shape, rather than having to redraw variations of that every single time, I can just, it's really annoying when they're like that. That's it. I can just have that as my first in the drawing subs. And I could even not call it number one. I could, how do I do this here? BIP, rename drawing. Okay, so what do I call it? Template. There we go, call it the template, and then to go there. So now it's my template hand, and then I can duplicate the drawing and create lots of others. Now let me see, which one is my duplicate drawing button? Nope. Nope. Gosh, I can't remember. I'm not entirely sure even if I got... Oh, no, here we go. Tit. Right, okay. Not that. That. That? No? No? That? No? Okay. There we go. Yeah. I can't quite remember which buttons does what on my keypad. Right, okay. So now I've got my actual hand, number one. I can start at least kind of making it something useful. So I'm going to create a set of sort of wobbles like that. I mean, drawing fingers that are this thin is a bit fiddly, I got to say. Oops, right. Oh, so unused to. Nope. That's it, like that. And then do the same thing. So there we are, like that. And then I'm going to have to go in and refine the. Let me just go in. Thicknesses of those bits. So bip, 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 bip. Smaller here, smaller here, smaller there, and smaller. Get rid of that one. Thick, thin. I mean, it might not be a bad idea that I make this the template, but it's tempting. But honestly, every hand is its own little special thing. Now, what I will do again is go in here and just change that. Change that. There we go. I think that's pretty good. I'll just make the fingers a bit longer. So longer finger. There probably is some other method to do fingers that somebody else has come up with, which I'm just not privy to. But they are notoriously fiddly. I mean, if you're doing it with one shape like I am, you're trying to do it so that you don't do this, where you get a sort of overlap and you have to go in and tidy it up. If you've got a more, I mean, you know, at this point, it probably is better for you since it's a one-off and you don't want to I mean, I'd like to potentially manipulate the fingers, so I still want to keep the line work quite clean. But, you know, if you're working on Mickey Mouse or something, I dare say they probably just draw what they want, you know, get it as nice as possible and then clean it up afterwards, you know. But I mean, they're probably doing a rough drawing as well and then cleaning that up, you know. If you know what the hand is going to be and doing all of this kind of stuff, which is so much more fun than tiddling around there, you then can go in and say, okay, I'm going to do that line into that one and create something lovely. Which, you know, I may have to do for some other fingers, but, you know, she's a simple character. It's not necessary, at least at this stage. So, you know, fingers suck. They're annoying to do. They're annoying in every sense. When you get a lovely finger, it's a joy to behold. But they are fiddly little sods. There we are. tips thick and I want the ends thinner. In fact, I could get... Ooh, what's happened there? Okay, let's just do Humour it. Sorry, no, I don't want to humour it. Why isn't it doing it there? There, and then shrink. That's better, yeah. That's better, yeah, that's much nicer. Okay, that'll do for now. She gets her hand on she's stirring something at the beginning, so for the most part I've got to draw something totally different anyway, but there will be times when she has that. But as a starting point, that's fine. I wouldn't mind just seeing how that looks away from her dress. So that is still quite thick there. So I will just do a bit of that. That's better. And then I need to thicken it up again when it gets to this part there. Okay, so that's good. I'll pop it back where it needs to go. Thank you. It's about there. Maybe a little bit further down. There we go. Right. I think that is pretty good as a starting point. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to tidy up the node view, and I'm going to fill her. First of all, I'm going to fill all the bits, then I'm going to tidy up the node view, and then I'm going to go into the relationship building and try to iron out some of these things. One of the things that I've got to figure out is a way to kind of soften that join between the head and the neck. And if it's simply not possible, then I'll just redraw it as a head and a neck. It might be a lot easier to do that. In fact, I'm really half certain that it'd be easier to just have it as a bit like that. That does look much better, actually. It depends how well it bends, you see. But that nice soft... Do you know what? I am going to try that. Let's get rid of the neck entirely and just have the head do that, which is pretty easy to do. Just add a few points here. I could even do it like that. There we are. May even... If I get rid of that and then just tighten that over, that's more... I think I'm going to try and rig her like that to start with, because she's a simple character. She doesn't need too much going on, and actually that would make my life a lot easier if I just then put some sort of series of bones in her that can manipulate that. I might pull that down just a little bit further. Okay, good. So now the process of colouring in the character. Now to make this a little bit easier, I'm just going to get rid of the colour card now. And I can also get rid of the rough image, so I'll keep it, I'll just unplug it from the main comp. And now I'm going to go away. No, go away. Don't want you. So, not using any of those colours. Right, okay, so first one. So I'm going to colour her skin in the white. Just wanted to check that was the case. And we're going to go through systematically. So here we are, the head filled in with white. Then her hair doesn't need any colour at all. Here AD's all the way over there, never mind. The eye will need colouring in. So actually I can have a look in the drawing layer and that will give us, that's it. Eye. Pupil doesn't need any. Lid will need some. That will also, well, because she's got makeup on in inverted commas, that'll need to be that. Her bow is white, is it? No, it is that colour. So bow is that white collar for skin, white collar for torso, is it? Yes, because the torso is the apron, and then the... Now, you'll notice, if any of you have read my book, you'll notice I am not doing the thing that I'm supposed to be doing of saying that particular colour should be different parts of a character. So the eyes should have their own colour, even though it's the same as something else. That is absolutely true. And for production, I would still go make sure every little bit, because you never know when you're going to need them. However, I do know that where I'm going to need them for this. If I come across that, I'll recolour it. It's my, it's my cross to bear, but it's a short commercial that I'm working on for myself. I'll do it this way, it'll be fine. So apron gap, here is the dress itself, which will be grey, and the apron upon it will be white. Yeah, I've done that. The arm is got to be skin colour. The leg is going to be skin colour. The foot is going to be that mid colour. The hand is going to be white. And the bow going to be white, white, eyebrow, mouth. Two parts in the mouth here. Mouth, grey, grey. The hair is not relevant, and then the turban, which is here. There we go. Right. So here we have our beautiful character and how she's going to start. Now, in order to do her properly, what we've got to first of all do is tidy up the maelstrom of connections here so that she makes some kind of sense, and then we're going to put relationships together, and then we're going to say, okay, merge that a bit with this bit and change relationships between each bit. So the first thing is to gather all the hair together and sort of make it look attractive. So AD, BD, AU, BU, so it's kind of how it will be. And I'm going to get a composite here, and I'm just going to plug them all in like that, make it look kind of neat, and call this hair comp. And then save that. And then, so I can see what on earth I'm doing here, I'm just going to get hold of these things and fan them out. Oops. Oh, I need to select that as well. Fan them out, please. Thank you. Right. Don't want you lot in the mix. There we are. Okay, and you can go away, and you can go over here. Right. Turban. Oh, hang on, I've done that wrong, haven't I, with her bow? I've just realised. I need to do those, the darker colours. And where's C bow? Ah, did that right, but the other bits didn't. Right, okay, back to reality. A bow, B bow, turban, and C bow, which I think will be all the way over here. Again, comp. And call it turban comp. Oops. Turban comp. Plug them all in. There we are, that'll do for now. We can tidy things up in a bit. Eyebrow, mouth. Foot, leg, arm, foot. Right, okay, so that will require its own again. There we are. A, leg, comp. Okay. Arm and hand. A, arm, comp. Move that over there. Apron, dress is also together, and then apron gap and the torso are also together, as well as the collar. Now I could bung them all on a torso composite, but I'm going to separate them a bit further still. So I will put them all together for a start. Like that. Call that upper comp, and call that lower comp. And I've done it the wrong way around, haven't I? Okay, swap them around. Can't be asked to sort of rename them, that's much easier. Yeah, there we go. So I'm just going to move them over there, move that over there, and then I'm going to call the whole thing torso comp. There we are. So that relationship's a little bit clearer. And then we've got lid, pupil, eye, head. So eye, lid, and pupil. Composite. Come on. And call that AI comp. And then the head is its own thing, but I want a composite for all the upper bits as well. So this is skull comp. There we go. Now then, this is where it gets interesting. Now that we've sort of figured out our sort of rough groups. Oh, by the way, the mouth would also be part of the skull. And the eyebrow would be part of the eye comp. There we are. So we missed a few there. That's it. Right, so let's actually just make this bigger so we can see what we're doing. Now, the hair comp and the turban comp and the skull comp are sort of all connected up in some way. So they will all be part of the head comp. And in fact, instead of calling that the head, I'm going to call that the skull. It's easier because then the head is actually a sort of an amalgam of all these things, isn't it? So there we go. And we're going to call that the head comp. And I do this thing lately of colouring the main composites or groups a certain colour, and I always do the head red. Now the I'll just tidy things up. So the head goes over there. Now the leg and the leg will go over there. Just tidy that up. Now, the arm and the torso are sort of part of the same thing. So I'm just going to actually connect that there. And then the lower one is actually part of the leg. So I'm going to do that there. So now we've got an upper and a lower. And then they're all sort of amalgamated to create the torso. What I'm going to do is the upper stuff I give another colour, which is yellow. And the lower stuff I give a colour blue. And that way you've got sort of three groups of things that are connected with three different parts of the body. And that way you can sort of see at a glance which part is doing which part. Like that, you see? And I'll call this final composite. There we are. And then we can build on that later. So all of these things are together. Now, what I want to start doing is cutters and amalgamations and things like that. So I want to at least get the puppet looking as she should. And then we can duplicate parts and stuff like that. And you'll notice that certain parts are in the right position now that perhaps weren't originally. So the upper part of the body is in front of the lower part. If I do it the other way around, if I try, we get something we don't want. We want that line to happen there. And it's a similar situation you can see with the pupil. So if I get hold of the pupil and move it in front of the eye, we now get something a little bit more desirable. The eyebrow has to stay in front of everything, and the lid has to stay in front of all of that except for the eyebrow. See, so this is the way round it should go. Eyebrow very much on top, then the lid, then the pupil, then the eye, because the lid will always cover the pupil, and the pupil will always sit on top of the eye. You see what I mean? The mouth is on top of everything, and the skull is the sort of background for everything. Now the hair needs to go way back, so it's actually plonked, all of that behind all of this malarkey. And then the turban needs to pretty much sit where it is now. The only thing is that the bow, which I might actually have as its own comp as well, the bow comp, do it properly. I would like that to sit behind the turban, like that, for reasons we will see a bit later. Actually, it might not matter too much, but you know, it might have to sit behind the head, in fact. And in fact, that might well be true. I might have to do that like that instead. We'll see. We'll come to it. Anyway, may need to fiddle a few things out. Anyway, basic stuff now. We want the skull to cut the turban. We'll get into the line work in a minute, but we do want that. I'm going to not do it that way. I'm going to use a cutter because A, it makes life make more sense, and B, it changes bounding boxes sizes to make them more manageable using cutters rather than doing it direct. So I prefer to do it that way. So I'm just going to do the basics first, and then I will go in and change and do clever things with the line work so that we get what we want. Now, the line of the eyelid. Oh, sorry. Sorry. Oh dear. Okay. The eye needs to cut the eyelid. So cutter. There we go. And it needs to cut the eyelid. So lid, eye being cut. The other way around. There we get our little eyelid cut. The head needs to be behind the upper torso. So actually do it like that. There we go. Now the problem here is that the collar needs to sit on top of everything else. So what I'm going to do is not do that, and we're going to use pegs in the future to move things to where they actually should be going. But as a broad church, how it is now is fine. Now the arm needs to come behind the first part of that. So we're going to have to break the arm into several pieces so that it goes behind yet in front of the same thing. We'll come to that later. We won't do it just yet. The rest of it looks pretty good to me, actually. So the only things we really need to fix are the line work here and the line work there. The rest of it is perfectly fine. So I'm not going to go through every single body part. And oh, actually, there is one more body part. The bit here needs to be cut by the torso. So the apron gap needs to be cut by that. So cutter again, plug it in there, and then have that cut by the torso. There we go. So now, if I were to move the artwork, if I were to move the artwork of the torso gap, it'll sort of be cut by that. I need to do the same thing with the apron. Where is that? Apron, there we are. So the apron is cut by the dress. Cutter, dress. And the other way around. There we go. So now if I move the apron around, that also is cut by that. Now in every single cutter's case, the problem is that the line work is not sitting on top of the line. So what I'm going to do is think about this. What I'd like is for the line work only to sit on top. So what I will do, I have several options here of what to do. I could either separate the line and the colour art, which is a bit of a pain, or I can use a colour to do that job. So because this is simple, unless I can think of another reason for not doing this, this is the route I'm going to go do for this simple character. So I'm going to use a colour selector, and I have to plug it in first in order for the colours to come into this for me to be able to select them. I'm going to say I would like to use the line colour, please, and then I'm going to just pop that on top. So you notice there it did a little thing there, which will be far more noticeable when I get hold of the apron and move it around. Now, good on one side. Unfortunately, we're getting this fringe here. And the reason we're getting that, which you just about can see there, is when you get anti-aliasing, or as I like to sometimes say, anti-aliasing, which I know is not true, you get this kind of fringe happening with brighter colours coming through. So the way to fix this is get another colour selector, plug that in just before the cutter here, and say I want, you notice it's disappeared now because there's no colour selected. From the dress, I want the fill to cut the dress. So I'm going to go to the dress and I'm going to find First Woman and I'll say the mid colour, please. I think it's that's the dress. There we go. And now we're not getting that because the dress is cut directly in the centre of this line where the fill has gone to the spine of this shape. So the cutting happens here, and of course we've got a big thick line over the top of that, covering it, sandwiching it. If we get rid of that, you'll see that line is being shaved here, and it'll be far more obvious if I get rid of the dress. That is absolutely happening directly in the centre of that line. So I'm just going to cover that with that, and then we fix our two problems. Now, the good thing is that this little relationship is mirrored pretty much all the way through the puppet that we are going to be doing. So I'm going to use this one and say line colour. So that way I know exactly what's going through here. And I'm going to call this mid colour. And then that way we know that's happening there. And now I can go in and find that relationship yet again in this colour, this cutter here. And I can duplicate it. So I'm going to duplicate the line colour and do a bit of the old bing bong. So now we've got that happening, which is what we want. And then I want the cutter to be a little bit more shaved off. So I go to the torso, what colour is mainly the torso? Let's have a look. So it's white. So the mid colour won't work, but I'm going to duplicate that anyway. Pop it there. And then change that, get rid of that, and so change it to the skin. So it's the skin that cuts. And if we look here, we now get what we want. Now ignore all the collar stuff, we'll sort all that out later because that has to sit on top and all that sort of stuff. But that, using the line colour, the mid colour, and I'll change that to the skin colour. There we are. That is what we'll use to do our work. So the eye uses a colour to cut the lid, and that would be the well, it's doing the whole thing, but we want now some of the eye to be over the top of that. So we use the line colour again, duplicate that little node, and take that and plug it over what's already gone, and you'll see there it's nice. And then we want to make that cutter a little bit smaller. So we're just going to use it would be the mid, oh no, hang on, it's the eye, so it'd be the white. So it'd be the skin colour. Rather unhelpfully, I've called it skin colour. And we do that. And now, even though you don't see the difference, if I get rid of that, you will see it has been cut in half, literally in the half that's got the fill. So we put that back, and now we've got that covering it. One last one to do for the turban. So it's using the skull to do this. So the skull is white. So first of all, I get the line colour. Take the line colour from the skull and put it over the top. And then I want to calm the cutter down a bit, so I use the white of the skull to do that. No difference visible, but you won't get that nasty little vibrating bit that sometimes occurs. And I think that's it. Oh no, one more to do for the hand and arm. So again, use a skin colour there and a cutter. Oops, cutter. There we are. Right, so the hand is being cut by the arm. Is that what I want? I think so. So like that. Now, is that right? That is right. Now this is a little bit different. What I want is the hand to be cut by the arm, but then I want the white part to go over the top. So I want the skin colour, a skin colour of the hand to then sit here. Is that right? Yes. So now we've got this rather uncomfortable situation where part of one is going on one and part of another is going on the other. It's not a very happy little marriage going on here, because the line here wants to go here. So I need something that I've created called an auto patch. And basically what it does, it automatically cuts the shape of the fill to do the right thing. So what you do, if I remember it rightly, the frustrating thing is I can never remember these things offhand. I use them so many times. The thing is, any session I just create one of them and then I use it again and again and again. Now the recipe for this is in my book and I explain it quite clearly, but I will go through it now. The hand's black line will cut its own white fill. So since I've already got, let me see, the skin colour there coming through, I want that to be cut by its own black, which I need to get. So there, and then I need this black to cut this part. So again, cutter. This is the only time I use this many cutters on hands, because A, you can turn it off and it's still usable for when you're working, and B, it's the only time I think it's useful. For other things, I don't recommend you use cutters for this kind of thing at all. Not a good idea, because too many cutters can make a very, very slow puppet if they're not needed. So the skin colour will be cut, is that right? Yes, skin colour will be cut by the line of the hand. There we go, and we've got it here. Now you'll see this little vibrating line, which I think is caused by the arm being a bit overzealous. Am I right? Yes. So we need to do the same thing with the arm. We need just the white to cut that part of the arm. So I'll find one that's skin colour and duplicate that. Go here and do that, and there we are. Now ignore this bit, because again we can tidy those sort of things up using textures. So that's not a cutting thing, that's a texture thing. But now we've conjoined the hand to do all of that. Now it's a mess this at the moment. I will tidy all of this up in due course. But we've got the basis of an entire puppet here. I don't think there's any other stuff I need to do apart from the splitting of the arm and stuff like that before we can go here. Oh, I've moved the apron, I haven't put it back. Let me just do that quickly. There we go, that's it, good. Right, okay, now I do have to make sure that that arm is split and done before I duplicate it over, or clone it rather. I have to make sure everything works in one part before I then clone it. So there's no point in doing that yet, because I need to put bones in, I need to make sure all that sort of stuff is done first. So I'm going to tidy up a little bit here, because this is a bit of a mess, I have to say. Let's start by separating and grouping things out. So I want to get all that out of the way, and then I'm going to group it and call this the head. And then if I unplug that, the entire head goes, except for the collar. The collar is considered to be part of the body. So that is now the head. Let's tidy up the head. First of all, I completely slice all of that off using the, what do they call it? Cable cutter. And I'm just going to tidy this up so it makes the relationships between them are still clarified and make sense. So this was sort of ruined when I had to do all of that malarkey earlier. So I'll just tidy that up, that's better. And I'll just put a few waypoints in so it really is neatened up. It doesn't take very long, but it's worth doing. Now bow here, that'll do, nice and tidy. Line colour, skin colour and all of this. There we are, the burn, the skull. I like to find relationships and keep things as tidy as they can be, because then it's easier to follow and you can see where things are flowing, what data is doing what. I'm going to group things further so that they're not as cluttered in a second, but for now let's just do that. I like to have things like that so that you can see that one is splitting into two parts. That's just easier to understand what's going on. That there, that lid there. Okay, so if we do that, and then the eye can go here. There we are, lid. I like to maintain relationship hierarchies visually as well, so all of these things are sort of low to the eye. The eye will be the thing that's sort of the daddy, if you like. It'll be the thing that moves everything else. That's still a little bit uncomfortable. Let me tidy this up a bit. That's it. So now we've got separated things out and can see the data flow between everything there. The skull is on that side, the mouth is on that side. That's all right. So what I'm going to do is take all of the eye stuff and group that and call that AI. So when we're finished with this, we can then create BI, which is essentially a clone. All of those things, that looks good at the moment. I might as well go in here and tidy up. So I'm just going to get rid of things that call to color 2 and color 1 and all this sort of stuff. This is me being extremely anally retentive, but it does help. You know, if you're passing this stuff over to somebody else to work on, it does help. It takes less than a second to do, and it's worth it. Now I'm going to do that, and I'm going to add a peg using that button, and then I'm going to tidy them all up. There we go. Now, as I said before, the eye is the thing that will drive everything else. So both the lid and the pupil will connect like that, and the eyebrow as well. So all of these things, oops, are now part of that. And to just tidy it up a little bit more, I will do that. Tidy that up. There we go. And then you can see the relationships better. I might even do that actually. Yeah, it's annoying I can't make them match, but anyway, never mind. Move it over a little bit, I suppose. Right, okay. Right. What I like to sometimes do as well is to sort of say the eye goes in here and then all the other stuff it does. But also sometimes I like to have it sort of even so you can see the hierarchies. That works quite well. So that's our eye. And of course that's got to fly out to the top there. So we've got a cleaner eye set up here. Now we'll have to do the same thing with the turban and the bow and all of that malarkey. So again, we go in here and we group that. That one there. Turban. Get rid of all of this green nonsense that was just created when creating the group. And then we go in and we just tidy things up and make them make sense again. So these two are from the skull. So let me just move that over a bit here. Now that is, because it is from the skull and it's making contact there and it's just going over the top of that. Is that what I want? To be honest, I think now I'm thinking that the skull and turban. Let's see. See, what will happen if I do that? What I think I'll do to preserve logic here is to keep the skull and the turban together, and then I'll call the whole thing skull and turban. So I'm going to call this skull and turban. Cut that and put it in here, because then this little relationship makes so much more sense, really. That's it like that. And then I'm going to just plug that in there. Why, oh why is she now transparent? Ah, because that is not visible. Right, okay. So, this is the problem we're having now. But that's all right, that's all right. If I just do that, then we're back. Yeah, okay. So that's good, and that's much cleaner now. That makes more sense. Skull and turban. The bow, I am going to group. Bow. And turban there we go. Skin colour again. I don't like skin colour 2 and line colour 3. I like to clarify exactly what's going on. And then here, come on, there we go. Hang on, there, that's right. That way it's just neater and it's easier to see the relationships. I like to keep, since that's sort of like the main event, I like to keep that line straight and all the rest can sort of fall in with that. But there we go, that's much clearer to me. I might move those over and then do that. There we go, that's a bit better. Don't like this. There's something about that I don't like. There we are. It's harder to read. I know this is sort of fiddling work now, but that's fine. And the skull and turban comp. There we go, and then just move that over there. Great. Okay, so we got that. Let's just move that over there. So la 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 la. Now I've got to put pegs on these things. So both that and that. Now I could do a bow peg. Let's go in right in here and just create a peg for these. Do that, and then we just do that. And then I could make the central one sort of drive the other two, actually. So I think I might do that relationship, and that way if I just move the C peg, it'll move the other two bits as well occasionally, which I might need. Now the hierarchy of that I would like to be a permanent affair of it being slightly in front. So one way I can do that is just by moving the position of the drawing forwards a little bit. So if I just go like that, we get our little bit moved in front. No keyframe created. It's just moving the drawing. Now, when of course we're not touching the drawing. So that is altered to the point that we want it on its own without any interference from any keyframes, and we're still able to maintain the hierarchies in a look that I like. You know, that's so you can sort of rig, and it's easier to understand which way round everything is. So I'm wondering if the downside of that might be that if I reset this, let me just see what happens. I think, yeah, that's the downside. If you reset the drawings, it accidentally resets that. But then it always would. You know, the things you want to reset are the pegs. So it's important to not reset the drawings accidentally, because then it'll do all sorts of weird things. That's the downside of this technique. Having said that, what you could do if you really, really wanted and you were worried about this sort of thing is, I don't think it's one of these. Let me just check. No. Oh, hang on, what's that? Let me just see if that works, just out of curiosity. No. Okay. I was rather hoping it might. Anyway, what you could do is you could put an element in here, pop it in there, so it's like an extra little go-between, and call it, I don't know, a nudge. And then move this one. And then, when you're selecting your bits and pieces here, of course, oh, sorry, here, beg your pardon, you're selecting that, and by clicking that, you're still not moving it. So you can, there's all sorts of funny little ways around it to do things. So I can just put a nudger in like that, and then you can just do that. If you put a peg in, then you're polluting the timeline with all sorts of, you know, funny little bits and pieces and stuff, keyframing and stuff. And of course, because we've set it to, I always, by default, have animate using animation tools turned off for any drawing. It means that unless you are really determined and you go in here and you put keyframes and you manipulate them, you're never going to create a keyframe for these little nudgings. So you're able to keep things where you want them. So anyway, so let me see, the turban and the bow and blah 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 blah. What I might do, I think what I will do is I'm gonna cut that, paste it there, and then I will actually just call that the bow, and then this and this can have their own, which I will then do. So the skull manipulates the turban and the bow, so wherever the skull goes, they follow. Okay, so now it's a much clearer relationship between all those elements, and we've created that. I might as well do that while we're at it. The skull also should position the eye as well. So what I will do is take that and take it out. Now, which way around should I go? It'd be neater if I did that, and then I could put the eye like that. I can always fiddle around and change things and nudge things, because you won't see it like that. Or I could, no. I mean, I do think a healthy node view is an organised one, and it does make problem solving a lot easier if you, if you have problems. No, I don't like that. Keep that. And I'll just create another waypoint. There we are, and then just join it to that. There we go. It just, then you can understand, oh, that flows into there, and that goes it. There. Okay, and then I'm going to put the eye like that. And then to make that eye be in the right place, I'm just going to nudge everything a little bit in that direction, using an element to do so. So I'm just going to pop that in there, and I'm just going to nudge it forwards a bit. There we are. And call it a nudger. There we are. So, like that. The mouth as well will need to be joined up. Like that. There we are. Oopsie daisy. There we go. Oh. And of course I'll nudge the mouth forward. There we are. Nudger. Okay. Oh, come on. Now, there we are. We're starting to get something a bit more complicated here. And I think, do you really need to have a skull and turban? I'll just call it skull. Because then we know everything, the bow and all of that is connected there too. So, there we go. Now, the hair is its own little thing. I'm just going to group that. And I'm going to cut all those cables and make some things up. There we go, like that. Now then, what relationships do I want? I think them all. Do I actually want both hairs to be separate? I think I do, really, because there will be some things, you know, they're going to be, it's quite crude animation, it's not going to take very long. So actually I don't want any one of these to be a hierarchical. I want them to be completely equal to each other. That way we're all good. Nice pretty little setup there. And then that all connects to the skull again. So wherever the skull goes, they follow. That's what's going on here. And because that relationship is so clear, I now want that to show where all of this other stuff is going to go. So that, to me, indicates that whatever's happening with the skull is happening with everything else underneath it. Like that. There we are. So far we've got that. And just for neatness and the fact that I'm going to probably put some pegs and everything else, I will also group this too. So I'll call that the mouth. Pop it there, plug it in there like that, and then it's very clear that all three things are being manipulated in this way. I will put another peg on the mouth eventually. Oh, excuse me. Come on. That's it. Like so. And then I think that's now neatened up. For the rest of it, it's fairly straightforward. I know it may seem much more complicated, but it's actually, the face is always the most fiddly bit, but the rest of it should be a lot more straightforward. So first of all, again, I'll group this and call it the upper. And I'm going to colour this yellow, as well as colouring this one red. Just check that nothing inside it's gone that way. Good. And I'm going to take all of this, thank you, all of this and make it a group, call it lower, and make it blue. There we go. So now we've got our three sort of straightforward groupings that make the entire body. And I'm going to go in here and again slice all this away because it's completely not what we want. And tidy. So we're probably going to have a group just for the arm. In fact, I know we are. So I'm going to create a arm group. And then when we're done and we're happy with that, we'll create the B arm group very easily, just with that entire little group. Go away, go away. Right, again, with all of this nonsense, I get rid of that and I get rid of that. Oh, of course you can't do that, can I? So I'll call one skin color 1. Or skin color hand. Skin color 1. Oh, skin color 1 and skin color 2. If I have to. It's not really what I want, but there we are. And change the cutter there and change the cutter there. Obviously I won't be able to do that, so cutter 1 I'll have to do, and this line color there. I try to get rid of numbers as much as I can because they can be confusing. Right there. Now the arm controls the hand. Is that right? Well, we've got to put some pegs in first. Okay, so arm controls hand. That's the relationship, and then I'm going to tidy this up so that we get something that flows a little bit nicer. Now if I do that, which I want to do, oh, we still get the same result. Good. I thought I might. Hang on, let me just check to see whether that's the case. The skin colour of the arm is cutting the hand fill, and then it's going there. And then, so that's the entirety of the hand being put down there. If I get rid of it, what happens? So that's happening there. Okay, fine. Right. Okay. Now for tidying that up, I'm going to go like that. And then we've got 2 things there and 1 thing there. Tidy that up. Okay. There we are. Okay, that's pretty much the A arm almost completed. I've got to put deformations and then I've got to split it and do all that sort of stuff, but I'll do that another time. And then this is another group. Come on. Oh, do it that way, it's easier. And whoa, that's not what I want at all. Okay, just gonna... Is that what I want? Yeah, I do want to group it. So what I'll do is composite all of these elements in exactly the same order and call it the, what is it, upper torso? And then I'll group it and then call it upper torso. And there we are. We've got all our bits here. Get rid of that cutter 2 nonsense and the line color 1 nonsense. And then I will tidy it up. So that also does that. So that clarifies what's going on there. And then that. Okay, actually it's easier if I do that. Now the torso will be moving everything. That's absolutely correct. So the torso is the main daddy here. So I'm going to put that there like that. Do that. And then torso does these. Now the collar needs to sit on top of everything. So I want to get that as close to the front as possible in this setup. And like that, that's good. But because it isn't resting on top of everything, I am going to actually use a nudger anyway. So, so that I really do get that happening. Now, depending on how you select things in your puppet, I like to do it visually, but for these nudgers, obviously if you're going up a hierarchy, you'd have to go up 1 or 2, whatever. So it's entirely up to you which side of this you put it on, but it doesn't really matter for me. So I'm just going to call that nudger. And move it up a little bit until we get it on top of the neck, and it's already done that, so that's good. Now then, how to make this? What I'd like is for that to go there, you see, and then have that there. But obviously, to do that, cuts out all of that malarkey. So that apron gap would then need to be nudged forward a little bit, which I'm happy to do because I like clarity in the node view more than, I don't like things swapping over too much because they just confuse and make life very difficult. So for me, tidy things up. That's clear that that is just a direct line in, and then this is sort of doing liney cuttery things. And then I need to nudge the torso back, or I need to nudge the apron gap forward. So I'm gonna just pop that there because artwork wise they're all the same. It's this that's the hierarchy. But I do want to nudge, I think, the torso back a little bit, I think. So I'm just gonna, oh, hang on, that's, you see already, that's not clear. That's clear. So again, nudger 2 or nudger 2, I don't know. I mean, I could call it nudger torso and stuff, I don't know. I'll maybe I should have labelled these things nudger collar, nudger this, nudger that. I might do that actually, or collar nudger. What would I do? If it's peg, it should be that. So I should call that collar nudger. There we go. And then I'll do the same thing there. I should have done that really, thinking about it. Nudger. And I want this to go forwards a bit. So I shall go bip, 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 bip. No, I don't want to go to back. That's it. Is that correct? Yes, it is. And then, of course, I've got to nudge that one back a bit again as well. You'll notice the reason why it's doing this is because previously it's been using purely the relationship between positions on the comp. But now I've nudged in a sort of physical way that back rather than in a hierarchical kind of layery way back. It has actually gone behind this. So I'm wondering now if actually that was a good idea. And in fact, I'm going to change this to apron. Nudger. Move that to there. And then I'm going to change that to there. And then we have what we want. There we go. It's a lot easier rather than have to then nudge everything else back. That's much clearer. Okay. So we've got our hierarchies all set up. Now, what to do? Is there anything else that I need to do? Don't think so. I think that's good. Right, okay, so I'm going to come out of there. Eventually we will have that happening, but the upper torso will drive the arm. So which part of this will be driving the arm? It'll be the torso. So I need to have an outer part coming. So I need to do that. And then I need to do that and that. So to maintain that sense of hierarchy, the torso is king, but I'm also having it come down. I could... actually, no, I'm not going to do it this way. There's a... being consistent, I want that to happen like that. And then if I want to do that, I can just put another... and I will do that. Just put another one of these in, plug that in, and then, oops, yeah, that'll do. And then I've got the general flow of data happening. In fact, I'll move that so the torso is the straightest part of that entire relationship. And then, oh, by the way, the torso also needs to have a connection happening at the side. So that way, it's not that important, but you can trace it pretty easily. And then that would drive the arm. So that's what I'm doing there. And that's much clearer than that mess before. And again, we'll do that. So we've got an out there. Now we're going to have a B arm as well, and that will also be driven in the same way. So that's the other bit that will be there. And now we've got the lower bit, and we'll just tidy this up. So again, we've got the dress and the apron. Well, hang on, get rid of all this nonsense. So again, cutters that are called cutter 3, I don't want that. That's fine, that's fine, that's fine. The leg, do I want the foot behind the leg? I do actually, because I want to give the impression that it's sort of creating that nice little roundy bit if it ever overlaps. So that is fine. And I'm going to create a group out of that and call that a leg. And then I'll sort that out in a minute. And then this stuff will be the lower torso. So there, doing that thing again. Actually, it might be easier if I just did group with composite. There you go. And call that lower torso. There we go. Get rid of all this. Move the composite to a sensible place. Call that lower torso comp. There we go. And then the dress moves the apron, and the apron goes on the outside. Is that right? Yes. So try and maintain that as much as possible, looks-wise. Looks as if it's probably doable. Yeah, line colour. Ah, now what's going on? Ah, that was to do that, wasn't it? That's it. So that is actually why we had it the way we had it. Okay, well that's not too bad. There we go. Yes, and then because these are two sort of line colour-y kind of things, I want them to sort of say, yes, colours are doing that, and now the dress itself is actually coming in here. It's just another little easy way to say what the relationships are. And then I'm going to probably do something more like that, because the line work, the hierarchy is the thing I want tiered. So hierarchy there, move that there, pop them there. Apron moves where dress goes. Out. There we are. So that's to me much more simple. That goes out there, and then the leg, which will be behind the torso, moves wherever the torso goes. I don't want that to happen. I want there to be a democracy with the leg movement, because if I move the torso around, I don't want the leg to move. So I want that to not happen like that. And I want these two to be having a peg, like that. Leg moves foot. And there we go. That's as basic as it gets. This will become more complicated, but only by a small amount, because I will put like some sort of deformation on the leg. But the relationship's pretty straightforward. Other than that, that's how that palaver carries on. That's all good. And there we have our groups. Now, what I quite like with characters is if they have this tri-band thing going on in the timeline. So we've got red, yellow and blue bands, which allow for me to see where the keyframes are happening in the character, and you can sort of do clever things like sort of only have lots of keyframes on the head and lots of keyframes on there and whatever. So I'm still out to lunch about this. I'm still figuring this out, but for now what I'm going to do is put a peg on each one and colour the peg in, because it makes it easier to see that relationship there. And all I have to do is colour this in the same as the group. So I'm just going to colour the head peg red, the upper peg yellow, and the lower peg blue. And then we've still got our three bands, but now, unlike before, I can create keyframes in them and they actually look different. So if I create a whole keyframe there, you can, well, it's a bit more obvious on the upper one, you can see a black dot and it will go literally all the way through the puppet. You see it all the way through. And so it's just a little bit easier. However, if I didn't do that and said I created a keyframe there, first of all, it has done it, but it's not as obvious. That white dot can mean so many things. If I go into the head space and create a keyframe on the mouth, I also get a white dot. So it doesn't tell me as much as if I get a white dot on this level here, I know that it's probably just various elements in the head that have been given a keyframe. However, if I go here and I go, I'm pretty confident that there is a key throughout the entirety of that hierarchy. So it just gives me that extra little help, and it can show me tweens, which the white ones can't. So it's another little helper for me. But I'm still a little bit uncertain of how to do that properly for myself. So it's still a work in progress, this tri-band thing. Anyway, right. Now the head is invisible at the moment. Why is that? Have I done something clever or accidental? I think I may have done something accidental with all the drawing substitutions I did, didn't I? I have to undo quite a few times before I get back. I accidentally hit the duplicate drawings key, and then that create a new key, create a new drawing, and of course it created a fresh one for every single thing in that group. That's where I went wrong. So there we go. That's all of that done. Now, what to do? I think I'm going to leave this tutorial at this moment, because I now want to go into sort of the heavy rigging of the character and do some stuff. But for now, that's not a bad place to leave it. You can see where I'm going, and then I'm actually going to put, deformers in there and all of this sort of stuff, I think, and duplicate the other side and get on with it. So yeah, hope you enjoyed this little perambulation, and yeah, see you guys again very soon. Bye bye.